What caused the Roman Empire to collapse? An important historical event that signaled the end of ancient civilization and the start of the Middle Ages was the fall of the Roman Empire. There was no one cause for this fall, rather. It was the result of centuries' worth of internal flaws and outside forces. Gaining knowledge of these elements helps one appreciate the intricacies of historical transformation and the vulnerability of even the strongest empires. Here are 7 key points that contributed to the fall of the Roman Empire. Number 7. Economic decline. The Roman Empire's security and power were seriously threatened by the complex problem of its economic collapse, which developed over ages. Rome initially prospered from a strong economy driven by trade, conquest, and agricultural output. But as the empire grew, so did the expenses of preserving its enormous lands. The administration used high taxes to pay for administrative costs and military conflicts, which disproportionately affected the lowest classes. People felt exploited by a distant and more corrupt government, which caused widespread resentment among the public. Emperors debased the currency, lowering the amount of silver in coins to produce more money, which led to widespread inflation and unstable economies. As conquests halted and fewer slaves became available, the dependence on slave labor that had supported agricultural and industrial production started to wane. Both urban and rural populations suffered as a result of this labor scarcity, which also raised food costs and reduced agricultural output. Economic activity was further crippled by the increased insecurity of trade routes brought on by civil upheaval and barbarian invasions. These elements combined to form a perfect storm that undermined the empire's financial underpinnings and made it more challenging to uphold public order and military might. Number 6. Barbarian invasions. During the late ancient era, the Roman Empire was constantly invaded by different barbarian tribes that took advantage of its vulnerability. Groups like the Visigoths, Vandals, Huns, and Ostrogoths started to infiltrate Rome's boundaries as internal political unrest and economic deterioration made it susceptible. External forces frequently prompted these tribes to migrate, for instance. The Huns' westward expansion pushed other tribes into Roman territory in search of safety. Under King Alaric I, the Visigoths famously attacked Rome in 410 CE, shocking the Roman world and signifying its fall from glory. The myth of Rome's invincibility was destroyed by this sack, which not only caused a great deal of material loss, but also gave other barbarian groups more confidence to invade Roman territory. Number 5. Political instability. One of the hallmarks of the late Roman Empire that played a major role in its demise was political instability. This unrest was typified by the crisis of the 3rd century, when more than 20 emperors came and went in a span of only 50 years, many of whom did so by violent means such military coups or assassinations. Because of the chaotic environment this quick turnover produced, governance became more and more ineffectual. Local governors started to demand greater autonomy from Rome's central government as competing factions fought for control, which caused division and a lack of consistent policies among the provinces. Officials who put their own interests ahead of those of the state were rife with corruption. Bribery and nepotism undermined administrative accountability and efficiency. Civil wars frequently broke out as ambitious generals fought for control of their factions or themselves due to the absence of solid political institutions and a defined succession plan. Number 4. Overexpansion. One of the biggest drawbacks of the Roman Empire was its enormous geographic reach. Its scope, which included sections of Asia, North Africa, and Europe at its height, presented formidable logistical difficulties for both administration and military. Although it took enormous resources to manage such a large area, the empire found it increasingly difficult to maintain efficient administration over its provinces as internal issues, such as political unrest and economic deterioration, became more noticeable. Communication was sluggish and difficult because of the breadth of the empire. Decisions taken in Rome frequently took weeks or months to reach remote provinces, where local leaders started acting on their own initiative as a result of central authorities' commands being delayed. Loyalty to Rome declined dramatically when local communities became disenchanted with remote control. Number 3. Decline of the Roman legions. An important turning point in the military efficacy of the empire in its later years was the collapse of the Roman legions. Previously praised for their training and discipline, legions faced significant recruitment difficulties when conventional sources diminished as a result of societal shifts in Rome. Many citizens were hesitant to serve in the military during economic downturns. As opportunities for land ownership or social mobility dwindled in an increasingly stratified society, fewer Romans chose military service over occupations in trade or agriculture, which offered more immediate rewards. As a result, Rome increasingly relied on foreign mercenaries or soldiers recruited from other countries or conquered peoples who frequently had no loyalty to Rome and were driven more by money than by duty or patriotism. The quality of armed forces was diminished by this reliance on mercenaries. These soldiers lacked the discipline of ancient legions made up of Roman citizens who had a stake in protecting their country from invaders. Number 2. Rise of Christianity. In its final years, the spread of Christianity had a significant impact on Roman culture, radically changing political dynamics and cultural standards inside the empire. Over the course of several centuries, Christianity progressively acquired acceptability throughout society after being first regarded with mistrust by Roman authorities because of its monotheistic doctrines, which contradicted customary polytheistic traditions related to civic obligations. Christianity was made legal by Emperor Constantine's Edict of Milan in the early 4th century CE. Emperor Theodosius made Christianity the official religion at the end of the 4th century CE, which marked a dramatic shift in both religion and Rome's overall governance. This change in emphasis shifted from allegiance to state institutions to religious devotion. Many citizens started placing a higher value on their faith than on the civic duties that were customarily associated with being a Roman citizen. This trend weakened the social cohesiveness that had previously maintained unity among diverse populations over large areas. The cultural unity that had once underpinned Rome's might started to swiftly erode as Christian ideals, which prioritized compassion over militarism, spread throughout society. Furthermore, church leaders frequently possessed considerable influence that was comparable to that of secular authorities. This dichotomy made administration much more difficult during periods when unity in leadership was essential. Number 1. Climatic changes and disease. By intensifying pre-existing social problems, environmental factors significantly contributed to the destabilization of the Roman Empire during its decline. Climate change during this time period resulted in unpredictable weather patterns and unfavorable agricultural conditions like droughts, which had a significant effect on crop yields in many areas, particularly those that depended on agriculture for both economic stability and subsistence. Due to the widespread food shortages brought on by these agricultural challenges, both urban residents and rural farmers who relied on steady harvests for their livelihoods experienced social upheaval in addition to economic hardship. At the same time, pandemics like the Antonine Plague and subsequent outbreaks like the Plague Cyprian devastated the population. Estimates indicate that up to 1/3 of the population may have perished in these outbreaks alone. This directly resulted in a lack of workers in all sectors, including agriculture and military recruitment, further undermining societal structures in general. In addition to placing a strain on the resources required to maintain order and stability in the face of escalating discontent, the combination of environmental stressors and disease outbreaks greatly contributed to the degradation of public health infrastructure. These interrelated elements produced an atmosphere that was ready to crumble. bringing about one of the biggest changes in history, the fall of one of the greatest empires in civilization, a shift that would influence Europe for decades to come. If you liked our video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.